and I see Wendy Link walking in the room. And I know she has some other commitments that are.
We're canvassing right now.
Yeah. And I'm going to keep it brief. She's an attorney, she's a mom, she's doing a phenomenal job. Rich Bartholomew said, Kathy, I hope you thank Wendy for the job that she's doing for the residents of Palm Beach County. We do appreciate it. One of the most difficult government jobs, I would think, especially in this time. So we appreciate your professionalism and your grace. You have done it with such calm and such leadership. If you got one of the things that we've got to do sometime after the election and before the spring election is, if you have not done the tour that they put in their building, it is extremely interesting to watch how it all comes together. You know, how the cake is baked, because it is eye-opening what they have to do and how they do it. And so I'm not going to bore you with all of, not bore you because it's all pretty interesting, her bio. But we want to thank you for all you do, the help you give us. We are happy to partner with you to register voters and to do things like that. So I'm going to let you.
All right. Thank you. Yes, we are canvassing now. So we started canvassing this week. Perfect. And so we are doing Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, when you're not meeting here, up at the Voting Equipment Center in Riviera Beach. It's right off of Blue Heron, pretty easy to get to. So this part is all open to the public, the opening, the duplication, the tabulation, and the canvassing board. So those are all going on, started Monday. And so I just took a little bit of a long lunch break to come here, and we got some going. So I'll kind of just quickly go through. I know all of you have been to our offices. This is just to show that we still are countywide. We are expecting to move in 2023, where our warehouse, voting equipment center, and the main office will all be combined, which will be much more efficient. Voter registration, which you all help us with, and we sincerely appreciate all the help you do. We're at about 1,002,000 of registered, but this is active registered voters. So as you know, we also have inactive registered voters who are still eligible to vote if they come and give us their updated address and make contact with us. So it's we always throw out our active registered voters. A lot of times I know counties compare. For example, on Miami-Dade, if you go to their website, the number that they give is actually active and inactive. So I think it's interesting that I just assumed we were all doing the same. This doesn't change very much. The Democratic Party, 40%, Republican Party, 29%, NPA and minor parties, 31%. I can tell you that within 1% of each of those is what it's been since I've been here. It's either been 41%, 40%, 29%, or 30%. So it's always been very close. So everybody goes out, the parties do their big pushes, and we still end up with the same. This is just a kind of an interesting thing. This is always, the numbers here are from the general elections. So these would all be November elections. And just, you can see, of course, in Florida we have 3 ways to vote, all of them equal methods to vote. And the red being the vote by mail, for those in the back that may not be able to see, the lighter blue being early voting, darker blue being election day. So you can see vote by mail, 2016, 2018, you're staying about a quarter of them, and then we jumped to half in 2020. Obviously, we had a pandemic. We like to think it's because we started paying for return postage. So, we started paying for return postage, and look what happened. But yeah, we know there was a pandemic in there. What's interesting, and I'm going to show you the next slide, is early voting, you can see, was staying kind of the same. And the big difference was on election day. Now, again, this is a little bit apples to oranges because these are all general elections. This next slide is the primary that we just had in August. But you can see primary vote by mail went up even more to 56%, making it obvious that it was only because of the prepaid postage. Because no one's worried about the pandemic anymore, I'm told. But look what happened to vote by mail, to early voting. So we increased the number of early voting sites. We went from 18 to 21, and our percentage went down to, it's actually like 11.5%, so under 12%. Is that just because it was a primary? We don't know. But so it's just an interesting thing. So we'll find out what happens with that. Or is it a backlash because there were such long lines from early voting in 2020? Don't know. Election law changes. I know you all are definitely our most informed groups that we speak to. So a lot of this you may know, but just voter name and party change. It used to be as long as it was in writing and signed. It didn't matter if it was on a cocktail napkin or a piece of paper, we could take it in and you could make that change. Now that does need to be on a voter registration form, and they just sign the update, check the update box. The new verification requirements for the Florida driver's license, Florida ID, or the last four of your social. You need to update your residential address. Also, you're going to need that, as you know, for updating, for requesting vote by mail. The increase in the frequency in which we do list maintenance, it's not really going to affect our county too much because we were already attempting to do it quarterly. And the reason there is you don't have such big swings, right? We're just keeping them going as we go. And so but in 2021, we didn't really get to do it because you can't do list maintenance within 90 days of an election. And we had a lot of elections in 2021 because we had all the special elections. So we really didn't have a lot of periods where we could do list maintenance in 2021. And so I think we only did one. And so now you are required to do it yearly. Inactive voter does have to confirm their address before they can be referred to active status. The all elections, this has of course gotten a lot of press. The all elections, if you had checked that before, which would have been good for 2 general election cycles, this is it. This is the last time you got.
What?
So after November 8th is when we want to start encouraging people to start requesting vote by mail if that's the way they want to vote. So if they want to vote by mail, starting June or November 9th, I don't know why I'm saying June, starting November 9th, they can start requesting. And then it'll be for the 2 years because it will be for the next general election cycle. So we do want to remind people not to think in terms of is it 1 year, 2 years, 4 years, because it's the next general election cycle. So if you request right now, it's only good for 3 weeks, right? So I don't want people to always have in their mind, oh, it's good for 2 years, because then they might miss one. So the biggest thing I'm concerned with is going to be the municipalities, because we know that with the municipal elections, there are people who had signed up for it in November. They automatically are getting it again in March, and a lot of them, there's not the same hoopla around elections in March, so a lot of people didn't even realize their city was having an election. Then their ballot comes in the mail and they go ahead and vote it. Their ballot's not going to just come in the mail now. They're going to have requested it. So I'm a little concerned we could see a drop in the municipal election turnout because of that. So again, we're pushing anything November 9th or later is when you can start signing up. And again, you do have to have those ways of us verifying who you are now, either Florida driver's license, Florida ID, or the last four of your social, but it has to be what we can verify, meaning it has to be the one that you signed up, what that you used to register. Now, most people don't know what they use to register, so we push them as much as we can, if they're able to use the, to go online and do it, because we have programmed it, so once you put in your information and we know it's you, then if you gave us your social when you registered, it's going to ask, it'll prompt you and ask you for your social. If you registered using your driver's license or Florida ID, it's going to prompt you for that. So if they go to the website and go online and do it, they'll get prompted for the filling out just a request form. Okay, if they're only filling out a request form, while the law states they only have to give one of those, if they give the wrong one, by law, it's simply incomplete. Okay, and it dies a sad, sad death. Okay, but I will say, at least for now, we've got the ability to, and we intend to, we'll kind of go that extra step. So if it comes to our office and it, is incomplete because they didn't give us the correct information, we will reach out to that voter and let them know you didn't give us the right information. We need you to fill it out. So we'll go that extra step and do that. My concern is, even if we're doing that, if we don't have their phone number or email or another way to reach them other than by mail, then by the time that occurs, they could end up in a situation where they've missed the deadline. Okay, so we will, we'll do our best and try to accommodate them and do that extra service, but it might be a timing problem for them. Okay, the checkbox, you all probably have seen your vote by mail ballots now, so you know that checkbox that had made it really easy for everybody. Just check the box if you want to continue having vote by mail. What we would do is we would manually go through after the election all of those ballots and then just separate them checkbox, no checkbox. Once they have the checkbox, we then use that to go ahead and do a re-up, and make that as a request. We're no longer allowed to do that, so you won't see that checkbox. We have requested of the state, and so if you all are doing any advocacy, you might consider this if you're interested. We requested from the state, since you're wiping them all out come December 31st, anything we have after January 1, or really after November 9th, anything we have that comes in after November 9th is going to be somebody who gave us the information you're looking for. So when they made the request, they gave us either their social, their Florida driver's license, or their ID, as opposed to the ones that we have on file now. Many of them didn't do that. So we're saying, since starting in 2023, every request is going to have had that information, would you allow us now to go back to the box? Because we'll have all that. We got that information once. Do we have to get it every time? I don't know that we're going to be successful with that, but it is a request we're going to make, and I think there's a logic to it because it still accomplishes what their stated purpose is, which is to make sure that that's the group, the party that did it, but without having to have them re-up again. Secure ballot intake stations, that's just a new name. It's a CIBIS instead of a Dropbox. There was a lot of confusion initially. We did get extra calls at the office because the governor made a couple of statements that he got rid of Dropboxes in Florida. Okay, when that statement came out, news reported it, a couple different stations picked up on it. We had a lot of calls saying, what's going on? We got calls from both people. We got calls from people who were upset that there were no more drop boxes, and we got calls from people who were happy that there were no more drop boxes, but they saw our box still out there. So they thought, we're breaking the law. And we said, no, we covered up the word drop box. It now has the word secure ballot intake station. That's all it has to do. We changed the name on all of our privacy sleeves. That was 1 million extra pieces of mail we had to print, or paper. So it was a very expensive change for us. It cost us about $60,000 because it wasn't just painting boxes. It said all of our voter outreach material, everything where we talk about vote by mail and early voting, we always referred to drop boxes because we were saying you could put your ballot in a drop box. So we changed all that. If you ever see the word Dropbox, let me know because we missed it somewhere. But we think we picked them all up. They do now all say secure ballot intake station, and we do have them. They will be monitored as is required by the law. The law requires that there be one attendant. That's one of our staff members. So we will always have one attendant at least because it's what's required, but we are likely to have two. Because if one attendant has to go to the restroom or something like that, we don't want that box unattended. I particularly don't want that box unattended because the extra fun part of that new law is it's a $25,000 personal fine to me that cannot be paid for out of taxpayer dollars. So if you see a sudden resignation from me, you'll know that both of them went to the bathroom at the same time. So yeah, so there will be always two people if I can help it, just so that we're always covered, that we always have one. And they are not 24/7 anymore. We used to be able to do 24/7 as long as we had the cameras, and at night we would hire the sheriffs to just sit out there. Very expensive, but at least it was open for our voters, and now we're not permitted to do that. It has to be our staff. I don't have staff who can sit out in all the offices through the night. So big change is the 3rd-degree felony for possessing more than 2 ballots that don't belong to you or your immediate family members. So critical to know here, it's in your possession. That's the problem. Okay, so if you are possessing them, however it is you came to get them. All right, so don't go picking up, all neighbors, if there's 5 of them that live in the household, even if it's one neighbor, 5 people in the household, that's 5 ballots. Only 2 ballots that don't belong to you or your immediate family member. Of course, that becomes a big deal for nursing homes, becomes a big deal for assisted living facilities, because they use a lot of times like a Kings Point, a lot of the homeowners associations would just have a big box. Residents would come to the clubhouse, drop them in, and then you'd have a group of people who would bring them to us. That's not permitted, okay, because that is more than 2 that don't belong to them. And so when you go to a secure ballot intake station, and you have what appears to be, perhaps might be more than yours, we have no way of knowing. If you come with a staff of 25, hey, great, you've got a lot of kids, whatever. But I have no way of knowing who I don't know who your family members are. Like, I don't have that database. So we're just going to tell you, right? We have a sign, because we don't want any, because there are cameras, right? So if you're coming to our 4 offices, they are cameras. People can request that through a public records request. So they are still on camera, so we don't want anybody to inadvertently be breaking the law and have somebody coming after them. So we have a big A-frame sign that tells what the statute is. They don't try to interpret it. They don't try to convince people to do it or not. Here's the statute. Want to make sure you're aware of it before you do this. By the way, we have cameras here. And then the other is if you come inside, same thing, there's cameras everywhere there too. And so we just give you a little card that tells you what the law is if we're concerned that you might be doing it. Having said that, if somebody does turn in 30 ballots, they're all going to be counted, or they're all at least going to go through the process. Okay, so they don't get pushed aside or become ineligible because somebody turned in too many. Okay, I guess that's the way to say it.
May I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am. Sorry.
So how do places like nursing homes, et cetera, cast their ballot?
So we get them, we send them out intentionally very early, right? So we mail them out between 40, or this year we mailed them out 39 days in advance. So they're mailed to them, they get them 38, 37 days in advance, and they have prepaid postage. So we're hoping that they will fill them out and put them back in the mailbox, because if you do it that soon, there's a really good chance that we're going to get it, and you can track them. Or they can have their family members bring them.
Was this known as harvesting?
That's what it's trying to get at. That's what this law was trying to do. Okay, new restrictions and penalties. Yes, ma'am.
Can your staff take more than 2 ballots? In other words, could you have a staff member go to Kings Point and pick up all the ballots?
No, because we're not, that would be a drop, that would be like having a drop box. And because we're only allowed to have the drop boxes at early voting sites or our permanent office locations. So we can't go there and pick it up because it would be picking it up from a drop box that we're not allowed to have. Now the only thing, I'll be right with you, the only thing that we are seeing more of that we didn't see during COVID, we used to do a lot of supervised voting. And then during COVID, all the nursing facilities, assisted living facilities sort of closed down to outsiders. So we weren't being permitted to go in for supervised voting. We have a lot more requests now for supervised voting. In fact, we're still doing them even this week, which makes it a little hard on us because we've got so much else going on. But we are doing the supervised voting as long as people are requesting it and we're able to do it. We're getting out there because that's another way that we can help that. Okay.
Yeah, how are you handling, across, you know, the western part of Florida that had the hurricane hit, and, I think it's Orange County that had flooding. How is the voting handled that way? Because people they can't go back to their homes and.
There was, the governor, actually I will say, giving credit where credit's due, the Secretary of State and the governor actually gave us everything that we asked for as a state. So it doesn't affect us because it only affected the counties. But I do sit on the executive committee of the Florida Supervisors of Elections, and we worked with those counties and asked them, what do you need? Like, given where you are, you know, if you don't have sites, if you don't have, so they're allowed, we took everything that they said they needed, made a request, and we got 100%. And so I don't remember exactly, but I can tell you the big ones were that they can continue early voting through election day. So they can have early voting even on Monday and into Tuesday. And so still with the same rules that you don't have to vote on election day at your precinct, because for a lot of them, that location doesn't exist anymore. And so they did have their early voting sites, as luck would have it, almost all the early voting sites were still standing and usable for all the counties. So it just, you know, happenstance luck. So they were able to use most of those. They're also able to accept vote by mail requests, you know, if they need to get changed, even if they had already sent them out, they can send them out again. And I think they're going to be able to, they could also send them out past the 10 days, because a lot of times people won't have known where they're going to be and didn't have an address to have them send it to, so they can do that. There was some, I think they gave them some leeway on getting the hard signature from the person to make the request, because sometimes they couldn't get it, they didn't have a way to get to the voting location, to the supervisor's office. So I don't remember all of it, but I do remember, I know we went to each of those counties that was affected, said what would you need given the situation you're in, and we asked for it and got everything that we asked for.
That's good. And Orange County then, how
I don't know that Orange
there was
County,
flooding, I think.
I don't, their SOE said that their voting stuff was fine.
Oh, okay.
Solicit, as you know, you can't hand out food and water within 150 feet. We have no problem at all if you want to stand at 150 feet and 1 inch. You're welcome to do so, but you just can't do food and water in the 150 feet. And then the secure ballot intake stations are now included within that 150 feet, where it used to only be polling locations and early voting locations that 150 feet applied to. Now it also applies to the secure ballot intake stations, which basically means it applies to all of our offices, because the secure ballot intake stations were at early voting, so those already, you know, might add 2 or 3 feet to your 150 feet. It really didn't affect that much, but what it did affect is because our offices didn't used to really be affected by the 150 feet, now they are.
I saw a news report, I believe it was this morning, that the election police have already made a couple of arrests. And I'm wondering if you can comment on that, if any of that has happened in Palm Beach County?
I know we had one of the earlier arrests, this goes back 3 weeks, a month ago. I honestly didn't, I've been in canvas, we started at 7:45 this morning, so I didn't see it. I was not made, I will tell you this, I wasn't made aware that there were any that were going to be in Palm Beach County.
They were felons, and evidently they were given the opportunity to vote, and nobody stopped them. And then they were arrested because legally they were not allowed to vote. So it was misinformation, which is very sad because these people are in jail again.
Yeah, I don't know whether there were any. I will tell you that it is what happened, and there were some pretty egregious things. I can tell you down in Miami, there was a gentleman, same thing. It was a third party. They were able to track it down. He said he was someplace, I don't remember where, but he was at a festival or something. there was a third-party voter registration organization. They were able to look at his application and see it. He told them he was a felon, that he didn't think he could vote, and the third-party group told him he could. And so he registered, and they told him you're fine because of Amendment 4. He did check the box that said he was eligible based on what this third-party group had told them. And they did go back to the third-party group, and they're trying to get some affidavits, but of course nobody is admitting to her there. I'll get you in just one second.
Well, I just wanted to, I'm the state action chair for reinstatement of voting rights for the league.
Okay, thank
So
you.
I wanted to be able to help these people.
Okay, great. And so on that one, the SWAT team actually came to his house. SWAT team came with guns drawn, and he was in his boxer shorts and came out, and they said he had been convicted of murder, but was out, and he was a proud registered voter and actually had it on his, he said yes, he had voted, because he had it all in a plastic bag. It was hanging on his refrigerator, and he showed he had his I voted sticker still, and he had his voter registration card, because of course, problem is the state is very behind. I think they're now doing a big catch up, but the state was, like in some cases, 2 years behind notifying us. So the problem is they come here, we send them to the state, when people register, we send it up to the state. The state is supposed to be doing eligibility checks because we don't have access to those databases. So we don't have access to the Department of Corrections, also whether somebody's been adjudicated mentally incapacitated. So that's what the state's supposed to do. State was up to 2 years behind in doing their eligibility checks. So the cards were being sent out. And so this person did vote. After the fact, when he showed up on the list, they sent him a letter, and he had the letter too, and he said, since I got my letter, I haven't voted. So that was an extreme case that of course made the news and was a big thing, but here's a guy who says, I don't deny voting, this group told me I could, I did it, I got my card, I went, I voted, here's my sticker, and then I got a letter in the mail saying, you can't because you are in that class of felon that can't get their rights back. He's like, so I never voted again. And I don't know that they're putting him back in jail, but he did have the SWAT team come to his house.
Was there ever a list made, because it seemed like in the news, it didn't sound like anyone knew how much people owed fine-wise. Does our county have, with the felons, does our county have a list, so if someone wants to go pay off their fine?
Right, I don't know if there's a list, but I do know that there are groups, including the best one is the Public Defender's Office. The Public Defender's Office is working with several other groups to try to get to the court records to determine what those fines were. So I'm not aware of an actual list, but there is, if the voter or if the previously convicted felon doesn't know whether or not they are eligible, we send everybody to the Public Defender's Office because they do have a group that's dedicated to checking that, because they have access to databases, again, that we don't have. So there is a way to do it. They're supposed to do it. There is a list. We did have a few people from Palm Beach County on that list when the first one came out, but I'm not aware. I didn't know about this one this morning. So things you all already know, so I'll go quickly. Voter registration date, vote closing is passed. Early voting is October 24th to November 6th. It starts next Monday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Vote by mail last day to request is October 29th. That's a Saturday. Our main office is going to be open that day to assist walk-ins, and primarily we get phone calls from people doing it. Key there is, it's not, a lot of times people think if I do it online, I can do it till midnight. The statute cuts it off at 5 o'clock. So even online, it's only 5 o'clock is where they have to do that request. And then of course, Election Day, November 8th. With our 3 ways to vote, just reminding everybody that we do have we have the 21 locations, so that's 3 more than we had in the 2020. Big areas, what we did was we were looking to focus on areas that had a lot of people. So we are at FAU Jupiter because our 2 busiest sites were Jupiter and Palm Beach Gardens. Jupiter had 3-hour waits almost every day, and Palm Beach Gardens had 2-hour waits every day. So that we're hoping by opening up FAU Jupiter, it sits right between them. So if you know anybody who's thinking of early voting in the North End, tell them about that new location, because that hopefully will help with those lines. We also have a new one down in Boca and the South Florida Fairgrounds to hit the central part of the area as well. Okay, a couple new programs. We're really excited about this one, and knocking on wood that it works. But so this is where you can make an appointment to early vote. And we are the only county in the country that's doing this. So we're hoping that it goes really well and that we can be a model for other folks to do. In theory, it should be great. So we did try it during the primary, and it worked well. The problem is during the primary, we had no lines anyway. So there wasn't a single person in line at early voting. So people came and they just walked right up, and we don't really know if they had shown up for their appointment or not, because they didn't check in, because there was no line. But the way it will work now, you can call our office. The easiest way, of course, is to go online, but you can also call our office for people who don't have access to a computer, or they can show up at the location, and if there's a long line and they want to make an appointment for later that day or for the next day, they can do it at that location as well while they're there. But you'll make an appointment. It's for any of the 21 sites. It's got a drop-down menu once you choose your location. It will then show you the available appointment times, and they're in 15-minute blocks. So if you want to vote, we're assuming that lunchtime will be busy, because a lot of people who are working might think, oh, I could go during lunch, but I couldn't do it if I had to wait 2 to 3 hours. And so we're expecting to have all of those filled up. And when you come to vote, we will still have sort of the regular, old-fashioned, get in the line and visit with your neighbors. That will still be available, but we'll have a separate line with staff that's dedicated to just people with appointments. And so when if you have a cell phone, it works the best if you've got a cell phone. If you don't have a cell phone, it doesn't stop you from using it. It just tells you that when you get there, you go check in. Okay, so if you have a cell phone, though, it's going to send you a reminder the day before, reminding you that you have an appointment tomorrow at whatever time. And then telling you when you get there, you hit the link that says, I'm here. And then it gives our staff, actually, this is going to be helpful if it's raining. While you're still in your car, you hit the link that says, I'm here. You'll get something back that says, great, thanks, we checked you in. We'll let you know when it's time for you to come in. And then you'll get a text saying, we're ready for you, come on in. So it's really handy, especially if it's raining. And some of our locations are great, because some of the locations do have a cover for at least some people. Other locations, it's a door, and that's it. So there is no undercover area. So I think for those particular areas, that not standing in the rain will be particularly helpful. But that way somebody shouldn't have to wait in line more than 15 minutes, because we do them in 15-minute blocks. So hopefully it goes well. We're excited about it. And we already, I don't know, Kim, do you know, the last I heard, which goes back a couple of days ago, we had 515 people had already signed up for appointments, and we hadn't yet started promoting it, really. So, well, we're just starting to say we are just starting to promote it now, because we didn't do it too early, because nobody's really thinking about early voting until it gets closer. So this week, you'll see we've got billboards, we're on the radio, and we have email notification went out yesterday or today. Yes, ma'am. Either way.
Okay, I'd be very interested to know, if the voters challenge, what does that mean for your office in terms of volume of extra work, et cetera? And also, how can the league help in making the public understand the high security and your allegiance to the law that may be fabricated interpretations by other people?
Right. Well, there's a couple of things that you could, again, one of our biggest issues that we get as we get closer is misinformation, disinformation, malinformation, where people are intentionally going out telling people the wrong thing. I'll tell you, there is a gentleman right now that we are trying to get hold of. I've gotten 2 calls both yesterday. There's a gentleman who is I'm afraid there might be a little dementia involved because I think he is very elderly. But he even went to the building that our auxiliary office is in, and he went to one of the county commissioner's offices, and he had on some sort of a lanyard and what looked like a badge, but it was turned backwards, so they couldn't really see what it said. But he went in, introduced himself, and gave what I believe is his real name, and said that he is an agent of the SOE, and was asking how he could help them. Okay, well, he's not one of our agents. If he's just walking around saying that, he's being polite, you kind of wonder, all right, no harm, no foul. My fear is, would somebody give him a ballot? Right? That's a fear. And then we got another call that he apparently went to Kings Point and started telling people that he's putting together sometime soon in the future for Republicans, Democrats, and NP, or independents is the word he used. So it'll be nonpartisan, open to everybody, an ecumenical event on behalf of the SOE. We're not doing any ecumenical events, in case you wondered. So if you hear about that, not us. So we are trying to, we just learned about this, I got the calls last night, and so trying to reach a gentleman to find out if it is him or is somebody using his name, because we don't even know, that's why I'm not using his name right now, because in case, in fairness to him, if it's not him doing that. So we're trying to find out if there's any mental health issue, or if there's something more devious. I don't know. But things like that concern us. Certainly letting people know about the appointments. The other big thing you'll see, which I'm about to get to, is we really are trying to get the word out. It's critical that people look at where they're supposed to vote, because a lot of people didn't vote in the primary. So now they're going to go to the general, and because of redistricting, with the census and redistricting, a lot of the polling locations have changed. So we've mailed everybody a new card, but even my own brother said, oh, I got a piece of mail the other day, Dad, there's a nice picture of you. I'm like, oh, that must have been your voter card. He goes, what? Send your voter card. He goes, oh, I thought it was junk mail, I threw it away. Great, my own brother doesn't open up our mail. So I think a lot of people did throw away their voter registration cards, or voter information cards. So we do have, we did send everybody a new voter information card that's on there, but we're encouraging people call the office, stop by the office, go online, look to see where you're supposed to vote, because we want happy voters, and it's an annoyed voter that we get when they find out that they're in the wrong place, right? Now you got an annoyed voter starting out. That's not good. So we're trying to make sure the biggest way I think you can help us and help all the voters is making sure everybody's looking at where they need to go. Because the last thing, you just don't want people to go and go, oh, forget it, I tried and I'm done. Right? You want them to go through and do it. Yes?
I have a vote by mail question, Wendy. So I know that there are a few vote by mail ballots that are not qualified because the signature doesn't match.
Right.
If that happens to you, and I know that you can check online to see if your vote by mail ballot has been accepted or not. If it's not accepted because the signature was disqualified, can you then go vote in person?
No, you can't vote in person, but you can cure that signature. You can cure it. So if you'll, in fact, go on to the next thing here. This is one thing, this is also new. This is new this election. So you can go, as you just said, anybody can go on to votepalmbeach.gov, go to the My Status button, and you can proactively go take a look at all this information. My Status button, very easy to get to. All you have to do is put your name and your birth date in. Tells you everything we know about you. Tells you what address we have on file, what party we have you listed, where your polling location is, if you have a valid vote by mail request. If so, what day did we mail your ballot? When did we get it back? Was there a signature problem with it? And then on election day, it'll say it was counted. So the My Status button is something we want everybody to know about and to check. But that does require you to take the step yourself to do that. If Ballot Tracks is something that we've just started, of course it's free, but you have to opt into it, because we can't be accused of sending people information they don't want, right? But you can choose email, text, or phone. So once you've signed up once, That's all you have to do, and it'll continue until you unsubscribe. But you can get one of those ways, email, text, or phone call, or all three if you want them. And if you do that, we will send something to you saying we sent your ballot out, or we received your ballot, or hey, there's a problem with your ballot, or congratulations, your ballot's been counted. So we really encourage people who are interested in that to sign up for this, because again, you won't even have to think about it. You will automatically get this information sent to you. But to answer finishing your thing, if you do have something that shows it didn't work, we will contact everybody. So we're going to at least contact you by letter. But if we're able to, if you did fill out that information, which we're required to ask for it by law, you are not required to give it to us, and that's your phone number, your email, your text. If you do give us that information on your voter certificate, we use that information to contact you right away as well. That way, you're going to know as soon as possible that there is a problem. We send you the cure affidavit. If we send it to you in the mail, we'll send it to you with a return, postage paid return envelope to send it back. A lot of times, though, we're going to encourage you, don't wait to send it back by mail. And then you fill out your affidavit, and you have to give the form of ID. There's a listed group of form of ID, but you don't have to come in person. You can make a photocopy of that and email it to us, or fax it. Let's start going down the line. I'll start first. I'll just go row by row.
Okay. This might be silly. What does SMS stand for?
Text. I don't know what it stands for. It's a text.
Okay, got it.
Kim will know. What does SMS stand for? Okay, it's a text.
So, I have a different question. When I called some of my voters, they moved out of state, some are to Louisiana, back to New York City, and they tell me, could you drop my name off from voter list? So I said,
They need to call us.
I said, I cannot do that. So then person asked me what she should do. I said, write a letter or send an email to Supervisor of Elections office. Am I giving the right?
Right, because if they do that, then we can contact them and get all the information we need. So yeah, if we get anything like a start like that is great, because if they send us a letter, obviously with the correct information, then we'll be able to do it. But even if they don't give us everything we need, once we have that indication, then we can follow up with them.
Thank you.
That'd be great. Yes, ma'am.
What do you do about people who can't have a consistent signature? My husband had a stroke and lost the ability to write his signature.
And we encourage them to update them. So
Would it be, it wouldn't be as consistent as somebody who has
right.
mobility.
So a couple things that might be helpful is one, if he does do an update so it's a little closer, we're not looking to see that it's an exact carbon copy type thing. If there are going to be, we all have to take a 2-hour class, and we're looking for certain things like the heights, are there any consistent heights, the way letters connect, and it's interesting, if you write something with your left hand, if you're right-handed, never do this, you then go back and compare, the way you connect your letters will be the same, even though the letters don't match.
So then that has to match the driver's license?
No, it just has to match what we have on file, which could be his driver's license, but if it's not his driver's license, it could be an updated thing. And then the other thing is, if it's not, then the cure affidavit will work for him, because he's going to sign the cure affidavit saying, I'm confirming that this was my vote by mail ballot, and it is the way I voted, and here's my ID to prove it.
We told people to put X's.
That is a legal way. I mean, that's a legal way for if somebody does that. The problem is, as long as if we're not saying that an X isn't valid when we reject them, what we're saying is that X doesn't match what's on file. But we do have people who have an X on file. And just because, we are being entertained all the time at canvassing board, yesterday we had a signature mismatch came because somebody's signature is a house. It's a picture of a house. And the reason it came before us is not because it's a house, because you can do that, but the house that they wrote on there when they signed their name on their voter registration did not have a line, like, it didn't have a roof, like, it had a line under the roof. The house, when they signed it on their voter ballot, had a rooftop without a line, so, yeah. We get all kinds of things. We have a happy face. We have one person who signs with a happy face, but that is their signature on file as well. So it's what is on file. So again, it's not that we aren't, because we have people that send us nasty grams all the time. You know, you rejected my signature, my husband's signature, because he did an X and he's had an accident. And like, we're not saying that he can't have an X. We're saying that he needs to update his signature with us. Because how would I know that that wasn't somebody who stole your ballot out of your mailbox and voted for you, and now you have already a voter intent, and that person can't vote again. So it's very important that we, you know, it's equally important that we not accept the right, you know, somebody, because you're taking away somebody else's right to vote when we do that. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I'm a poll worker and I'm concerned about security. Do you have any plans for security at the polls?
For early voting, where we expect to have the most lines, we do have 2 security guards. We'll have at least 1, and some of them have 2 security guards in addition to our staff. And then all the poll workers, as you know, have been told, call our office if you have an issue and call 911. You know, we're not asking people to accept any risk. If you feel like somebody's getting out of hand, they're being disruptive, or you have any concerns for safety, 911 or call us so we can get somebody down there, or 911. But we do at least have security guards at early voting. We don't have security guards at all 400 locations, but because they don't have usually as many lines, we can rely on the deputy, the poll deputy who's out there. If they're seeing things that are not going well, they let the clerk know to call us, and they can also, we tell them, don't hesitate, call 911 if you need to have folks there. We also do let the sheriff's office know, and the for those that have their own municipal police force, we let them know where all of our polling locations are, so that they can be a little more attuned if they get a call from the site, like from this site, to know that it's a polling location. They should get there quickly.
What's the penalty for someone who crosses the 150 feet?
They have to get out. Yeah, it's not a criminal penalty. They just they have to get back. So if they cross over and they're not supposed to be there, the poll deputy is going to tell them, you have to go behind the 150 feet. If they refuse to do so, then they can be removed for trespassing and they can't come back.
No, as a clerk, we have to document every incident and everything that happens outside. So.
Right, yeah. So yeah, your deputy would tell you that. Yes, ma'am.
I'm a poll worker too.
Thank you for that, by the way.
Oh, I love it. It's so rewarding. My question is this, with the no wait in line. Okay, so let's say the voter is about 10 minutes late. How long do we save their spot if we have a line wrapped around the building? Do they have to go to the end of the line?
Well, again, don't forget, it's only early voting. So it's only early voting they can make an appointment. So it's not election day. So are you an early voting poll worker?
Yes.
Okay. So for early voting, they have the time slot. They have a 15-minute time slot. So that is their sort of leeway. So they've signed up for 12:15 to 12:30. Now, if they get there at 12:31, I'd probably let them go. But if you've got lines wrapped around, if they had at 12:15, they show up at 2, sorry. Feel free to make an appointment another time. But that's the reason we do it in 15-minute time increments, to give them. So it's 12:15, but you really have 12:15 to 12:30.
What I'm going to ask you to do is to hold your questions, because we really only had until 12:30.
Yeah, I'm sorry. They're going to get a little angry with me if I don't get back to canvassing, because they can't start again without me. So again, just in the community, know that we are here. We want to do as much outreach as we can, because we do want there to be accurate information, and we know if we're going to give it, it's going to be accurate. Trusted Info 2022 is what the state is doing on a statewide basis. When I go out, I tell people, because this is the time you could start seeing emails coming from folks or websites popping up that are not ours. I don't expect somebody always to remember Vote Palm Beach, because although it sounds easy to remember as I'm saying it right now, you get home and you're like, oh, Palm Beach elections, that sounds official. If it's a .org, it's not us. Or a .com, it's not us. .gov. So if you can't remember Vote Palm Beach, because we know there's so many things that sound similar, we're the only .gov. So if we just tell people, remember the .gov and know it's from us. Again, even though if you don't have an appointment for early voting, you can still go on our website, and the website will be updated, I think it's every 30 minutes. So the website gets updated every 30 minutes, letting people know what the wait times are at different locations, because I can tell you when Jupiter had a 3-hour wait, Wells had a 20-minute wait. And we would go to people at the end of the line in Jupiter and say, you got about 3 hours here. If you take time, go in your car, drive 20 minutes to Wells, 20 minutes in line to vote, 20 minutes back, you've only spent an hour, and you're going to be here for 3. But interestingly, a lot of people didn't want to leave. But we do try to tell people, check where you are going, because there might be something that's not very much farther from you and would save you some time. And then, of course, there's a tracking your ballot we talked about. You can do it yourself, or you can sign up for ballot tracks where we are proactively sending it for you. Redistricting, this is just my way of reminding everybody, please remind people about redistricting, letting them know that they need to check their polling location. We really don't want people to get there, get in line, and find out that they're in the wrong place. And we will have, we're sending out postcards to every household. They're getting ready to go out now. So we are sending out a postcard to every household that says, if you are registered at this address, your polling location is. Okay, so we're sending that out to every household leading into the election, because we are worried about people going to the wrong place. Because although I wasn't here 10 years ago, some of my staff was, and they said it was a nightmare that people did not check. And when I talked to other counties, they said, oh, every time we have a redistricting and we have the full-scale change, it's always terrible. So we're trying to be a little more proactive by sending it to every household. And so those postcards will be going out shortly. Again, this is how to reach us for Vote Palm Beach, is our social media stuff. And with that, I thank you very much for allowing me to be here.
Thank you so much, and thank you. We appreciate answering all of our questions, and let us know what we can do.
Thank you.
We are here to help.
Thank you so much. Remind everybody, go to the right place.
Thank you. Just give us a minute to change programs, and then Marcia's going to be giving our Vote 2020. Want to remind you that while we are nonpartisan and we do not support any candidates or any parties, we do support issues. And we have supported both of the county questions. One is on the housing. The other one is for the school board. And if you want school board signs to put in your yard, I have about 20 in the back. You are more than welcome to take them. That's an important one. What that does is continues music, art, PE in the elementary grades, keeps veteran teachers in the classroom, because if this does not pass, veteran teachers of more than 10 years experience will lose $10,000 a year. So when you see things about how teachers have been paid, they have not been paid fairly in Florida. Veteran teachers have been punished for many years. And if you want to know more, I can explain it, but I'm not going to go there right now. So Marcia is ready. And again, if you want signs for the school board referendum, they're on the back table. And we also have some voter guides if you want to take voter guides with you.
Thank you so much. I'm just going to go through the 3 amendments very briefly. We are here till 1, which is 5 minutes. I don't know if I'll do it in 5 minutes, but I will go pretty briefly through this. So the first amendment that is on our ballot was proposed by the state legislature, and it is a limit on increased property assessment for flood improvements. So as we know, in Florida, we can be subjected to flood situations. And people who own homes where they may get flooded could do something to prevent any damage at their home. So maybe they will raise their air conditioner unit up off the ground so it doesn't get flooded out. But any improvement that they do, maybe it's waterproofing, maybe it's something else. Whatever that improvement is, that would be subject to their tax assessment, right? So they do an improvement to their house, it increases the value of their house, their taxes go up. That's how it always works, no matter what you've done to your house. This amendment, though, proposed by the state legislature, is saying, in this case, if it was an improvement specifically for flood abatement or prevention, then we will not increase their value. They will not be assessed for those improvements. So this is something that they are asking that it goes into the state constitution, and our voters get to vote either yes or no on this this amendment. It has to pass with more than 60% of the voters in order for it to become effective. I will just tell you that at this time, the League of Women Voters across the state has voted to not support it. No, they're saying that they're taking no position on this particular one, right? This is entirely up to the voters and the homeowners if they want this or not. So we're not giving you any indication of what you should or shouldn't do with that one, all right? So what it says is that the legislature can prohibit the flood resistance improvements from increasing their assessed value. That would be the yes vote. The no would just maintain the status quo, and any flood resistance improvement could increase their valuation of their home. All right, so that's what we're looking at there. The next one is, again, proposed by the state legislature, and they want to abolish the Constitution Revision Commission. Now, a little background on that. After the state constitution was revised in the 1960s, they proposed that every 20 years they create this commission, which is 37 people who are appointed by the governor and the legislature and the Supreme Court of Florida. So they get together, they name all these people. It's a one-year commitment for this commission. They go through the Constitution, they look at anything that they feel like they need to change or delete, and then they put those amendments out for the next election. So this has been going on each 20 years since the 1960s, and the last time was in 2018, where we had a number of amendments on the ballot, and some of them were a little convoluted, so there was some criticism about them. The next time will be in 2038. So the legislature is saying, you know what, maybe we don't need this anymore, let's abolish it. So that's what we're asking the voters now. Do you want to get rid of this commission, or do you want to keep it? The problem, I'll give you a couple problems with that. Number one, it's one less way that it gives the voters say in what the Constitution is for Florida if we abolish it. It would only allow us to do things from the legislature or from citizen initiatives, or there's also a taxation commission that can look at the Constitution, or they could call a constitutional convention. But the League is opposed to this particular amendment. We feel that even though the commission maybe has been flawed in the past, it is another way that it goes directly to the voters and they can decide if the Constitution needs to be amended or not. So, again, your choice on that, but the League is saying, let's oppose this, let's continue to keep that Constitution Commission going, and let's just make it more bipartisan. That's one of the things that we're suggesting. Yes, ma'am?
Does it still allow them to bundle more than one issue together on
That is what happened in 2018. That's what some of this criticism is referring to. I don't know how that will go forward in the future. I don't know if anything's been changed, but that's why people didn't like it in the past. So I don't have an answer for that particular question. But I would say that that's something that we would, say to our legislators, if you're going to keep it, let's prevent some of those things from happening that happened in the past. The third one has to do with the homestead exemption. Now, this came up again in the last couple of elections. They also have added some extra categories to this homestead exemption. So the way it currently is if you have your primary home here in Florida, you can qualify for the homestead exemption, which takes $50,000 off your valuation of your home. And then a few years back when they added some other categories, it was things like widows of service members, and there were some other different categories. So this is not without precedence, but this time it is specific to certain public employees. So it would be teachers, EMTs, firefighters, people of that sort of level, that sort of economic level. And again, this came from the state legislature, and they are saying, let's give them an additional tax break. So if you realize, that if people's taxes are being decreased, that means that the revenues coming to the state will also be decreased, right? So if we vote yes for this and say, yes, let's give this class of workers an additional $50,000 exemption, it's going to reduce our tax revenues in the state, across the state, not just here in Palm Beach, but everywhere. This is a statewide thing. If we vote no, it would retain the current exemptions of only the $50,000 and not an additional $50,000.
Would
Yes,
this
ma'am.
also be for current employees, or would it cover retirees?
I believe it is only for current employees. And another question that came to me at a different venue was, well, how do we know after they retire or quit or do something different, are they still going to be getting that exemption? I don't know the answer for that either. I'm assuming that there's a mechanism that they would have to continue to say, yes, I still qualify for it. And that would be at the state, at the county level for the tax assessor.
Aren't property taxes county? Property taxes don't go to the state, they go to the
No,
county.
correct. But I said this is happening for the whole state. This is not just Palm Beach County is
But
what I'm
it's your
talking about.
county that loses the tax revenue.
Yes, ma'am. It's the county. Yes, it is. That is correct. All right, I'm not going to go on into the other two because we did have a presentation last month about the...
What was the lake's position on that?
We are opposed to that additional exemption only because we do not feel that taxation belongs in the Constitution.
Isn't that the same reason for not taking a position on the first one?
We just chose not to take a position on the first one.
Oh, you did.
Yeah, the second and the third we are opposed to. But yes, we don't really want taxation in the Constitution at all. All right. I just want to say real briefly, I went to a presentation the other night, and the gentleman who's on the city commission or the county commission who proposed this workforce affordable housing was the guest speaker. So that was really interesting because he gave the history behind it. Again, this is something that the league is supportive of. It is a $200 million bond, and it is to build affordable housing, and they're planning to do it on 3 different corridors. So Federal Highway, Congress, and Military Trail, because those are where bus routes are. So they're wanting to take maybe older commercial areas, maybe an old storefront area that's defunct now, and tear those buildings down and build affordable housing for workers so that they could stay here in the county and then have transportation as well. So that is, again, this is coming just from the county, and it's all the way up, you know, up and down the length of Palm Beach County from Boca all the way up to Jupiter. But those are the three main corridors where they would be wanting to do this workforce housing. Yes, ma'am?
There was a complaint that a lot of the new developments are not living up to their required amount of workforce housing that they're doing. Would this affect that at all? I mean, it's a big problem that these big expensive developments are not offering part of their, or insufficient.
Right. This is separate from that, but that is the reason why they are doing this bond issue, is that they want to really focus it on workforce housing on those three main corridors, because that's where they feel like these people could work and then get transportation. Yes, Pam, did you have something to add?
I just did. $200 million sounds like a big number, but this is over 20 years, and what I heard, the number that I heard, and you can probably confirm this, it works out to about $14 a year per household. So we're not talking big. This is one trip to Chick-fil-A.
Okay. All right. There's a question right here.
Was there another bond like this that was passed 15 or 20 years ago, and the legislators have just been taking money out of it, and it was messed
I believe that's the Sadowski fund that you're speaking of. That's something completely separate from this. And those monies they're trying to get those monies to be used for what that purpose was. So this is something new. This is for new housing, basically tearing down old buildings and putting up some, higher density workforce type housing. But I will say also that some of that other money that you're talking about, and other grants and federal grants, there are other pockets of money that they would use for rehabbing current houses. Like, let's say in West Palm Beach, if there's an area that the houses are getting a little bit more derelict, that area could receive some grant money and fix those houses up. But that's totally different from this pocket of money. Yes, ma'am?
So I was at DeQuesta Village Hall Council, and the county gave a presentation, and the whole thing was different from what you're saying, from what I heard there, which could be what I'm hearing. You are saying that these will be all high rises?
I don't know that. No, ma'am. I don't know.
The way they said it was a piece of this development would be workforce, a piece of that development would be workforce. The way you're saying is the whole thing would be workforce.
I don't know exactly. If you heard it directly from the county, I would say that's
a totally different thing, because what you're saying is this looks like what we used to call low-cost housing in the north, and that's a totally different thing.
I don't know that.
From 10% of somebody's
Okay,
vote.
I don't want to speak beyond what my knowledge is. What I know is that it's a $200 million bond for 20 years, and they will be building that over that time period. And what it actually looks like, I don't know.
It makes a big difference whether
Right.
what you're talking
But
about.
what he said was that this was something that he'd been working on since 2016, and then we had the pandemic, and so they didn't roll it out in 2020 like they had planned to, and so now he's doing it in 22. So it's been an ongoing affordable housing concern of this particular county commissioner. And so that's where our information comes from. Karen, did you have a question?
Particularly for those of you who are new members, this is a 4-year study that went on with everyone at the table. And the league had 4 members on that study.
Okay, great. So we are supportive of this particular bond. Yes, ma'am. Is there another hand or no? Okay, all right. And then the last one was the school district, and again, we are supportive of that as well. And that would help support our teachers and mental health workers in the schools. We also have police officers. We have over 200 police officers that work in all of the schools here in Palm Beach County. And it would also keep the arts and music and career orientation type teachers employed in our school district. And again, we are supportive of that. It is a referendum that is just extending Normally, it would expire in June of 2023. They're asking for us to reauthorize it to go through 2027. All right. Any other questions at this point? No? All right. So I hope that's helpful. I know that a lot of you have the voter's guide. There's also more in the back. And all of this information is in there as well. So if you want to read it a little bit more fully, please do that. And thank you for your attendance here today. Bye-bye.